Evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for our panel discussion, Public Montessori, Who is it for? We are excited to have our guests here tonight from Moore Montessori Community School and Sankofa Montessori School. I'm going to start the evening by introducing our panelists and sharing a little bit of background information for each panelist. First, we have Sarah Harvey. She started her teaching career as a 6th through 8th grade special education teacher. She transitioned from the classroom to serve as an instructional coach for teachers from preschool through high school. In continuing her work to support teachers, she served as the founding director of operations at Relay Graduate School of Education and later supported several Relay campuses as a senior director of national strategy and operations. Sarah realized teachers who had the best student outcomes were the ones who were able to harness each child's inner drive to learn. Through her coaching and observation of various educational methodologies, she realized the educational pedagogy that most embodied the way of educating a child was the Montessori method. Upon realizing there were no tuition-free schools for families who wanted a Montessori option for their children in the Atlanta area, she founded Sankofa Montessori to meet this unmet need. Ms. Harvey holds a bachelor's degree in political science and psychology from Washington College and a master's in special education from Mary Lou Fulton Teachers College at Arizona State University. Ms. Harvey is currently pursuing a master's in industrial organizational psychology from the Extension School at Harvard University. Thanks for being here tonight, Sarah.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. We also have Kisha Young from Moore Montessori Community School. She serves as the assistant head of school. Kisha is a Missouri native and a Moore Montessori parent. Ms. Young earned her Bachelor's of Science in Professional and Interdisciplinary Studies, specializing in elementary education and special education from Jackson State University in Jackson, Mississippi, and earned a master's in educational leadership from Concordia University. For several years, Ms. Young worked for a prominent mental health agency in Memphis, helping emotionally disturbed youth and families. Kisha spent 1 year co-teaching kindergarten and most recently worked as the Dean of Students at a public Montessori school in Memphis, Tennessee, where she founded the Attachment Village. Thanks for being here tonight, Kisha.
Thanks for having me.
We also have Jennifer Sifford. Thanks for being here, Jennifer. She serves as the office manager for Moore Montessori Community School, and she has 10 years of hotel front desk clerk experience. She also has an associate's degree in early childhood education that she received from Sandhills Community College in 2015. In her spare time, she loves making new things with her vinyl machine and spending as much time as she can with family and friends. We're glad you're here tonight.
Thank you for having me.
And we have Peggy Johnson, who serves as the instructional coach for Moore Montessori Community School. Peggy was a founding board member at Moore Montessori. She was a Montessori teacher for 35 years and is now a professor in the early childhood education program at Sandhills Community College. She supports our teaching staff by providing weekly one-on-one coaching sessions. Thanks for being here, Peggy.
Thank you.
Okay. So we are going to jump right in and get started. I have a question for all of you to kick us off. So first off, we would love to hear more about what brought you to public Montessori.
I'll go.
Go.
Well, I've known Montessori for a long time. I was a Montessori kid, and I went from the time that I was, I believe, 2.5 to about 7. And then when it was time for me to have kids, the same year that my daughter was going into pre-K, the school in Memphis, Tennessee, Libertas, was opening, and it was their founding year. And so I was like, I have to get my daughter in public Montessori. And so I got her in. And at that same time, I was working at a no excuses school. And here I was working at a, for lack of better words, drill and kill school where they were, children were sitting in desks and we were shoving pencils in kids' hands and having them write paragraphs in kindergarten. My daughter was getting this beautiful education where she was learning language, and she was having hands-on materials and getting lessons one-on-one. And I just could not believe the difference in the education that my daughter was receiving and what I was providing for children. And so I knew that it was not in my heart for education to be the way that I was providing it with children at the No Excuses School. And I knew that what my daughter was getting at the public Montessori school was what was right for children. And I had to get more, and I had to learn more, and I had to be a part of it. And so luckily, the head of school at that time loved me somehow and recruited me. And so I ended up getting the opportunity to work at that school, and I have not looked back since.
So a familiar story. I love your passion. Thanks.
I taught Montessori for, as I said, for 35 years. And I moved from Cincinnati, Ohio, big city. You know, they have a big public school Montessori program that's very popular. But I was in a private school. Anyway, I early retired and came down to this small town in North Carolina looking for Montessori, didn't find it.
Mhm.
And anyway, I went to work at the college and I taught early childhood education. But then I got a call from Katie Rucker, who is our head of school and the founder of our school. And she got my name from somebody knowing that I was a Montessorian. And so she asked me if I'd help found the school. And I said, sure. And so we worked together to, with the rest of the board to found more Montessori Community School. And then as I left the board, as the school opened, I became the instructional coach. And I came to Montessori through my little niece, who at 4 years old came in on Christmas and with her little clipboard and her apron and her little pencil and said, now, what would you like for your drink? And that's how I went, oh my gosh, where did this child come from? I must find this reinvented child. Anyway, so this is my first, entree into public Montessori, and it's really, really well worth it and incredible.
Yeah, thanks, Peggy.
Thank you both for sharing. I can go next. And so I always say my journey to Montessori started in 2010. I just wasn't aware that journey had started. It was my first year in the classroom, and I was enrolled in a special education master's program. And our professor took us to observe different schools to just observe what was happening in those classrooms. And we were in Phoenix, Arizona at that time, where they have a ton of public Montessori schools. So we went into a school and I was like, what is happening? This is so cool. This is nothing like what's happening in my current school. I was teaching at a public school at that time. And I kind of, went through that experience and, saw kids being independent, kids not sitting in desks the whole time. It was just this quiet hum, as if it was a lab that kids were in. And it just stuck with me, right? And so I move on with my life. I'm doing all the things as you read in my bio, John. And then in 2015, I was in a coaching role, supporting teachers in New Haven public schools. And one of the students I was assigned, one of the teachers in our program who I was providing coaching for, happened to be in the only public Montessori school in New Haven, Elm City Montessori. And I remember walking into her class and I was like, wait, I've seen this before somewhere. Also, I have no idea what I'm supposed to do with you because your kids are working so independently. You are just sitting back observing. What is this magic? And then I kind of forgot about it. I hung out with the teacher for a bit, moved on. And then in 2020, found out I was going to be a parent and really started thinking about what is the type of educational experience I would want for my child. Kisha, very similar to you. And I kind of started reflecting, right? Part of the name of our school, Sankofa, is really rooted in this philosophy of reflection, right? And so honoring the past to make way for the future. That is what that term is. And that concept of reflection is just really big in our current teaching philosophy and the ways in which I just think about life. And so really spending that time reflecting, I said, oh yeah, that like Montessori, that's what I want. And so of course, being the educator that I am, I don't know, we found out I was like 6 weeks pregnant. I was like, let me order all the books. I don't know who to talk to, but we will immerse ourselves. And that's what I did. And then my husband and I started looking for, okay, when this kid is eventually old, first we were like, are there public pre-K Montessori programs, right? Because we're like, we know 1 to 3 years old, it's on us. We got to figure it out. But 3 years old and up, like perhaps we could put her in a public Montessori school. And we couldn't find any. And then I was like, okay, most places don't have free pre-K 3, most places don't have free pre-K 4, but what about kindergarten when that happens? Because we knew we wanted more than one child. And there wasn't another one.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh man, what do we do? And mind you, my husband and I are both professionals. And, you know, in my area, it's about $17,000 a year for a high fidelity quality Montessori education.
Mhm.
And I was like, this isn't okay, right? Like I'm not a Montessorian, right? Like I'm not trained, but I have the skill set. I know how to find people. I know how to hustle to make things happen. And so let's make it happen. Let's figure it out. And that's what started the journey to found Sankofa Montessori. Like it started in 2020. And the Montessori community has been so welcoming and so gracious with time, resources. I mean, there are people on this call who have been helpful, right? The folks over at More Montessori in like our journey to write our application, to submit it. People in my community, right? We submitted our application with over 600 community voices saying like, this is a need, this is a want in the Metro Atlanta community. And when I'll just speak to this and then I'll stop talking. But when you think about, right, what constitutes a liberatory way of educating children, right, where each child can lean into their own purpose, where each child is not being told like, this is what you must do, this is how you must think, but rather we are designing this experience for you where you get to like find out who you are. And we as the adults are just here to guide you and make that happen. How beautiful is that? Especially for Black and Brown children, at least for us in Metro Atlanta, where that is like not the norm, right? And so to be able to work with our community to actualize this, to get that charter to be in the stage where we can open in July, like it's been a journey, but it is a journey that I am so grateful to have been in the position to lead alongside my community to get us to this point.
Thank you, Sarah. Jennifer, how about you?
So for me, it starts a little later in life. I started at Sand Hills and decided to do early childhood. And I had Miss Peggy as an instructor there, and along with a bunch of other people that were great. And they all just loved Montessori. It became an obsession. It was like, where is this? Where does this come from? How do you do it? And, there just wasn't any public. It was always, it costs so much to go. It costs so much to go, but I loved it. I just fell in love with it. And then, you just go through life. And then I'd seen the thing about Katie Rucker had posted that she was looking for a receptionist. And I was like, wait a minute, it's Montessori and it's public. That's awesome. That doesn't happen a lot. And I fell in love with it, and I've been in love with it ever since.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Your all stories resonate so much with how Mountain City has come together, right? Like we have been exposed to the Montessori approach, seen how impactful it is for children, and have become really compelled and driven to make sure that everyone can have access in our community. So we definitely all share that thread in our stories. And I'm sure throughout the questions tonight, much of what you have said will serve as a jumping off point for your answers. So I want to go ahead and move to our next question. And this is for anyone to respond to. But from your perspective, what are the most common misconceptions of a Montessori school or the Montessori approach?
I'm going to say the most common misconception is that they're free. They're free to run around the room
Yes.
And they people don't understand our concept of freedom and discipline with responsibility, freedom with responsibility.
Mhm.
When I first moved to North Carolina to Pinehurst, I got a job at a private school, and I had kindergarten, and I said, I'll come and I'll do kindergarten, but I have to do Montessori. So I had materials and they bought me materials. And after the first month, the principal calls me and he goes, what are you doing in there? And I said, well, I'm teaching. He goes, but they're all moving around. I said, yes, they're all moving around. So after the year, when the children will show you, but I think that's one of the most common ones. They think that you can choose what you want to do and there are no guardrails. And that's not true.
Peggy, 1000%. That is the most common misconception that we get here. Like so many families, as we are talking about the school recruiting right now, and just sharing about Montessori with people, it's like, oh, that's the one where the kids do whatever they want.
Yeah.
And it's like, no. Like the freedom within limits. Like we have boundaries, like, right? Just like, and it's always like children thrive on knowing where the boundaries are so they feel safe to like go as far as they can. And that's a big part of Montessori. But yeah, that's a huge misconception. Even I remember at our charter interview, that's like one of our interviewers said, so like he used the term loosey goosey.
Oh gosh.
And we finished the interview and everyone was like, did you catch that? And I was like, yeah. Like it's just such a misconception that even super, super wow, like educated people in the education space even think that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I
what
was
would
gonna
you
say, I
all
have
say-
to agree.
Go ahead,
Go ahead.
Jennifer. Yeah.
Oh,
No,
I
go
was just
ahead.
gonna say, I have to agree, as with what I do at the school, I do a lot of tours with parents and it's bringing them in, letting them see. And the first thing they say is, oh, they just get to run around and do whatever. And it's like, no. And so then we take a tour in the classroom and they're like, wait, it's so calm. They're doing their work and it's so quiet and there's 27 kids in the room. And I'm like, yeah, it's, and I like Sarah's term freedom within limits, because that's exactly what I use as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, it sounds like you all definitely have run into very similar issues and it take the opportunity to sort of educate folks around what you are seeing in the classroom, right? But is there anything specific you would say you've done to address that particular concern?
Yeah, Peggy and I tag team educational opportunities for families. And so opportunities for families to learn about how we do discipline at More Montessori, or suggestions of how we can kind of bridge the gap between home and school, and opportunities for parents to learn what we're even talking about when we're talking about Montessori. Like, why do we have children sweeping? Why do we have children washing dishes? And how does that relate to them learning to write? So really just making sure that they understand what Montessori is and addressing any questions as they come up.
Yeah. Coffee with Kisha.
Love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
right. Like we're not opened yet. And so, and for a lot of our families, they don't know what Montessori looks like, right? And so you can show them videos, but it's just very hard to understand if you haven't seen it. And so one of the things we did is we did a pop-up classroom where we actually rented a space and set up a Montessori classroom and brought in guides, like certified guides, and had parents bringing their children. And just when you see their children gravitate towards the materials, right? Because the materials are so beautiful, even though, like we haven't given the lessons, they kind of don't know what's happening. But then with the guides kind of like guiding the children based on which material they gravitate towards, and the parents just stepping back and seeing what happens, right? They get to see that freedom within limits, as much as we can show them without being in that physical space. And that truly, like when we think about just like our enrollment numbers, that one pop-up classroom that we did like transformed like our enrollment. Like people just being able to see it And so we're having another one on April 1st, just to have people come into the space to just kind of like witness and feel that again.
That's
Sarah,
a great idea.
yeah, and something that I've done at schools in the past is something called a spring and a fall breakfast. And it's when families get to come in and see actual lessons that their children have gotten or received. And their child may either demonstrate what they know or give their parent the lesson.
Oh,
It's awesome. And it's really cool to see in the fall what your child can do. And then in the spring, again, what your child has learned to be able to do throughout the whole year.
I
It's
love that.
a really amazing way to just show off with, just let Montessori do its thing and show itself what it does.
I love it.
The children will show them. That's how she believes. That's what she said too, Montessori. Yeah.
I love that.
Right. That's what we all saw too, right? When we first saw Montessori and kind of had it, click for us, it was the kids showing us typically.
Mhm.
So yeah, awesome. Thank you all. So next is probably our most important question for the evening. So we wonder, who would you say Montessori is for, or who really finds success in a Montessori school?
Well, of course, we're going to say Montessori is for all. It's for everyone. Everyone can be successful. You have to have that open mindset and that forward thinking. And each child is so individualized. And the classes are taught for each child. The program follows each child, and it's individualized education. So it is for everyone. I can't imagine. We have children from all backgrounds, and we have children with special needs. So, and they are succeeding and they are doing well. It's a futuristic look for executive function and, all of the things that are common things to help you through life. So it's good for everyone, in my personal opinion.
1000% agree, Peggy, in my personal opinion as well. And I'm not remembering who. I've met so many people in the Montessori community, but somebody said Montessori is for every child. It's not for every family. Right. And so because I believe that every child can thrive under Montessori, but it may not be what a family is like, oh, this is the type of educational environment or experience that I want my child to be in. To me, it's a no-brainer for your child to be in an environment, right, where their curiosity is encouraged, constantly, where their independence is built, where they're building these critical thinking skills that will enable them to thrive in whatever world exists 20 years from now, rather than learn this specific thing. Well, the world is going to look different. So why are we training you to do just this one thing? Also, why are we training you? Why aren't you exploring and finding your purpose? But I think for some parents, they're like, no, I want my child to be in a setting where it's coding. That's all, that is what the thing is. And so Montessori would not be for that family. And what I've found in my conversations with, school leaders around the country, private and public Montessori settings, is that when it's not a good fit with the family, right, they end up leaving because they just don't see the value in it for the child. And so, for our families, we always that is our tagline: Montessori is for every child, but we understand that it may not be for your family. And so let's tell you what this is about, with hopes that we can convince you that it's actually for your family, but, it's definitely for your child, but it may not be for you as a family.
Yeah, Sarah, that's so true. And I think that was kind of the difference in me working at the No Excuses School versus working in Montessori, is that some families were absolutely okay with their child having to write paragraphs or being asked to write paragraphs and read almost novels in kindergarten. I mean, if that was what was the fit for their family. That's absolutely, that's true.
And even that approach right there is even really a great example of leveraging self-determination, right? Honoring that. We don't, we will explain and show you, but ultimately it is up to the family to make that decision, right? So I love to see that Montessori practice in action in our own practices, right? So you all have kind of led me to the next question. Why is Montessori the right choice to serve a diverse community?
I think there's so many benefits for the children to learn from each other, and benefits for the families as well. And like through family engagement. So there's opportunities for children to connect beyond school. So there may be times where they're connecting at a family engagement event, and um, that may extend beyond and go into play dates. And there's opportunities for children that wouldn't, or families that wouldn't typically have a reason to be together because their circles never enter. This is that opportunity because they've met at school. And a breakthrough moment for us at More Montessori was we have a child who's in a wheelchair, and he went on his first play date this year that he's ever had in his life. And that just goes to show that in Montessori, and this is even at my previous school, we are so welcoming and loving and accepting of everyone. And I don't know that that would be the same if he didn't attend our school. So I just think that that was one of the most beautiful moments that I've seen this year, and really, really proud that I was able to witness that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to agree with Kisha 100%. You know, we hear when the kids come in the office, we hear stories about them being outside of school with other children that if they were not in the school together, their circles wouldn't have crossed, their paths wouldn't have, and they're the best of friends. And it's like they couldn't have got that without the diverse community of the school.
Yeah, ditto to all of that. And I would say for me, when I was thinking about, right, like the educational model that most actually not just like leads a child to have a life of purpose or right, like harnesses their inner drive to learn. For me, like, which is the one that's most culturally responsive, right? That is like part of our mission at Sankofa Montessori. It's Montessori. And so one of the books that guided our work in that culturally responsive space is Zaretta Hammond's Culturally Responsive Teaching in the Brain. And so she talks about a couple of things that culturally responsive educators do, right? And as I like try to remember this list, you all will be like, yeah, that's Montessori. Yeah, that's Montessori, right? So they introduce students to productive struggle, right? And so you presenting the content to the child and be like, grapple with this, right? Like go do mastery, go do that independent practice, grapple with that with a friend within yourself. It's like the concept of like believing as the adult, the educator, that students have a brain for learning already, right? Like you don't have to teach to that. And like that is, right, like the kids come with us with everything that they need. And our job as the adult, as the guide, is to facilitate that learning. One of the things is, right, like creating a learning environment where students work alone and work with one another, right? Like that's Montessori. Instead of an environment where it's like we all do the same things at the same time, because everyone is different in what it is that they need and where they are. And then giving students the gift of independence. That is something that culturally responsive educators do. And so like, these are all things, and there's like more, but these are the things that are coming to the top of my mind. These are all things that are like our Montessori guides are like trained to do. And so as like someone who's recruiting right now for guides, I'm not adding to my list of like, oh, now I got to train them to be culturally responsive. They know, right? Like, what do culturally responsive educators do? They know how to do that, right? And that, right, like we'll do the added layer of like, let's talk about biases and like all that stuff that we need to add to make sure that they understand our cultural context. But a lot of the key things that Zaretta Hammond talks about, and that you'll find in a lot of readings about what it means to be a culturally responsive educator, is Montessori. So just wanted to add that to the conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Sarah, that resonates a lot with what I was noticing too, in terms of Montessori, that oftentimes anything, you know, that wasn't Montessori, if it was evidence-based and high quality, I could usually tell for sure if it aligned nicely with the Montessori approach, right? But often if I started seeing conflicts, I could tell right away that that probably wasn't an evidence-based high quality practice, or curriculum, or, you know, tool, whatever it might be. So I think you're spot on there. Peggy, earlier you used the term futuristic. And so we all know that Dr. Maria Montessori developed this educational method well over 100 years ago. So why would you all say this, you know, early 20th century Italian doctors' research and methodologies still work today, and potentially with a futuristic lens?
Well, there has been research over time that shows that it is a valid educational paradigm. And we who teach it, we who know it, we who have studied it, know that it is still relevant and works. She based her program, I don't call it a method, but anyway, she based her understandings on observations of children, and she created a form of education that is following what children need to be educated. She didn't create something that, okay, this month we're going to do this year we're going to do this. We're going to create this form of education. We're going to try and make everybody fit into it. It's not the way it is. Her methods of observation, observing the tendencies of children, the needs and wants of children, the way that they learn, is timeless. And so it resonates right now in this current time. And I'm telling you, it's brilliant. That's all I keep saying. This math, it's brilliant. At the college, I would teach Montessori math, and I'd wait for the students, and they'd sit there and they'd go, why didn't we learn that way? You know, and that's been since 1906. So I mean, the concepts, the beliefs, the observing of children has not changed, and it's still valid today, and it's research based.
Okay, well, I think I'll shift gears just a little bit, because I think we're all familiar with what Montessori often looks like for young children. But could you all tell me a little bit more about what you see the Montessori approach looking like for older children, and particularly at the lower and then the upper elementary experience?
Okay, it gets messy. No, I'm going to say that I taught primary, which is the 3 to 6 year olds, you know, and but I was in a school that went all the way up through middle school. But the children in the primary everything set up for them in nice, neat little packages that they take to the table, and they do. When you get to the lower L, it goes, each level builds on responsibility and independence. Okay, so you go to the lower L, and they're kind of looking like, what? Okay, I have to remember to go get a pencil, to get a piece of paper, this is where everything is, and I have to independently organize my mind to take care of my needs. And the lower L and the upper L, really, Montessori called what children are at this stage the herd instinct. They want to be together, so there's a lot of group work, a lot of group lessons, and a lot of group work. So if you go into a lower elementary class, you'll see some children independent, and some children in 2s, and some children working with 3s. The lessons are given to a small group usually. Upper L, you get even more. Well, they're also all working with materials, especially in the lower L. And in the upper L, you're going to get a little more independence, where they're going into planning and how their day is going to be, what their lessons are, what their responsibilities are, what do they have to get done. Kisha, you can add to that too. You're in the upper L quite a bit too. And then middle school, we're just opening up this year. So it's going to be a little bit of an adjustment. We're going to have a special math teacher come in. So it's you know, like you're going to have a class to get them ready to go to high school. But anyway, the elementary, yeah, when you go in, I call it messy, but they're not really worried about everything. You know, they're worried about learning. They're not so much worried about making sure their table is nice and tidy. So that's just one part of it.
Well, and they begin to really care about their friends. That
Oh, yeah.
becomes a lot more important.
I can't wait. I'm excited. We start right like
That's the stuff.
we start with just the little ones and lower L and primary. And in a couple of years, we will be at upper L. So can't wait.
It is so much fun. It really is to watch the elementary level. And what's fun is to see this child that was 3 or 4 and now growing as, as they go along and how different they are. And you went, wow, you took responsibility there. This is good. So, no, elementary is exciting. They go through the 5 great lessons, and that inspires children. And they go off, one big great lesson can inspire math and science and social studies and everything. And they go off and do lots of experiments and lots of writing. So it's an exciting time.
Well, great. We're looking forward to that too, that's having that experience at Mountain City as well. So thank you all. So I'm going to gear this question at our more Montessori community friends. Locally, we've historically had a racial gap in outcomes, specifically between Black and white students. And we are impressed that 95% of 3rd graders at Moore Montessori were proficient in reading last year. So tell us what this means to you and how you accomplished this.
A loaded
Yeah,
question.
you want me to?
It is a loaded question.
All right. Well, for example, in reading alone, there is a set Montessori curriculum for reading. But as we looked at children who don't always kind of follow that, that, what is it, 80% will learn it no matter what, something like that. But as we saw that, we added in things we know that are really research-based and quality, like Orton Gillingham. We added that in for those children that are having trouble decoding or remembering their sounds. And we have a program called Flyleaf that we added that is really good. It's a reading program, and it encompasses everything, the decoding and being able to read words, and the comprehension. Do you know what you're reading? So we put those 2 programs in effect. The other thing we did was we started in primary with the 3 to 5-year-olds, and we gave them on target goals. In other words, we have like transition goals. So by the end of kindergarten, we hope that their children will be able to do certain things to go to the lower elementary. And then by the end of lower elementary, we're hoping they will be ready to go to the upper. So we're always working to prepare them to move on. And so we kind of keep on target that way. But so any child that is having trouble with reading, we really focus in on and find what that child needs. Again, Montessori, individualized attention. Would that be right, Kisha? Anything to add?
No, that was spot on. I was just going to say it's just continuously evaluating our process too. And that checklist that we have, or the checkpoints that we have, I think was the most key thing that we could have done, because it really allows us to catch
Early.
to catch early if there's something that's going on and how to address it. So that was, I think, one of the most transformational things that we could have done, honestly.
And Jennifer, tell them about red folders.
Yeah, so we do this program called Red Folders. I'm pretty passionate about it. I don't know if it's where I do it or I handle it or what. But they're read every day folders. And what we do is we take the students when they start in kindergarten, and the teachers work with them for a few weeks, and then we decide where to start them. And they're leveled readers. And we send them home. And every week they don't have homework. We ask them to read with their kids every night for 20 minutes. And they read that level reader as to what level they're on. And then they tell us, hey, was this book easy, just right, or hard? And that way we can work with that. And then the teachers take that data and see what they're doing. And then we have statistically seen students that have not participated in Red Folder are not reading at the level they should be. So then that's when we're like, okay, we need to work with this student to get this going, which is where we start doing more stuff in class too, to help with that as well.
And involving the families, of course, along the way.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Sure that they are in the loop with where their kids are academically, and building a homeschool action plan on what they can do at home to support.
Yeah, great. Thank you. I love hearing about the intentionality and that use of data. And then, of course, that partnership with the families. I can only imagine those three elements made a huge difference for your readers. So speaking of families, I want to shift gears and ask, I know we talked a little bit about families earlier tonight. And so we know, as you all mentioned, it may be new, Montessori may be new for families as they enroll their children in a public Montessori school. So what would you say the role of a family is in supporting their child in a Montessori school?
Involvement, being involved in the school, coming to school functions, coming to parent nights, being communication is the other one that I keep thinking of. It's got to be communication between families and the teacher, families in the school. And I think we have a really good communication system going with them. And you know, nowadays, in the old days, it used to be call, leave a message, I'll call you back later. Now they can get in touch with you all the time. This, which is good, but it's also bad, you know. But they can communicate. They have great communication between the teacher and the family. So I'd say communication and involvement and education. You know, not knowing is hard. Knowing is easier. Even if it's, you know, if it's bad news, I know it's bad news. But just communicating and educating people on what exactly we're doing, that's huge.
I think also an open-mindedness and a willingness to trust the process and trust the journey of Montessori.
Yeah,
Exactly what I was getting ready to say too, is being open-minded and having that as well.
When we were writing the charter application and we were like coming up with our mission, and in talking to families, we kept hearing over and over again that, right, like the school also centering family is something that was like really important to them, because at times they didn't, you know, there were environments where the parents themselves didn't feel welcomed to engage in the schooling of their children. And so part of our mission is to be family centered and you know, culturally responsive. And so for us, like that family component is huge in terms of like making Montessori work, not just in our school community, but also when the children go home. And so, you know, we're still recruiting. We haven't opened our doors yet. But one of the things that we do is our Montessori coach does monthly, and this is for our enrolled parents as well as prospective parents, does like monthly, I think it's like 45-minute virtual sessions on Montessori like principles. And so like her first session was last month in February, which was, I don't remember the title, but the basic gist was like how to Montessorify your home, right? And so it's like this parallel of like in the classroom, this is what we do, but this is what you can do at home. And so like, let me walk you through my kitchen. This is how, right? Like you don't have to go, you know, like go on HGTV to get everything redone, but you could put the snacks on the lower shelf so your kids can get to it, right? And so those types of tips to make it feel practical for families, so they can see like that, like relationship between like what's happening at school needs to be reinforced at home. And so Peggy, I think to your point around like the education piece, that's something that we're like very mindful of, because it's just different. like a lot of our parents went to traditional, like I go to school, I sit in a desk, and now you're like, here's this thing. And so like for them to have that buy-in of not just sending their child to you, but also reinforcing what's happening in the school, in their home, they need to see that like direct connection. And so that's a series we started running right now that we'll continue to do as our doors open. to just really engage families.
That's great, Sarah. And think back now. Think on how all of us talked about when we first saw Montessori and we went, wow, but what is this? Okay, so now here are parents coming in and they're going, wow, now what is this? So we have to really work on that education to let them know our mission, our goals, our purpose, our care for your children and our goals. So yep, very good. I love the ideas that you have for involving parents. Yes.
Yeah, and so you all have really taken me to my next question, but I still want to give you the opportunity to intentionally respond to it. So as we have parents, they really want to know more about Montessori. So what would you say, if you have anything to add, would be next for them, or who would you suggest they connect with, or anything to read, or is there just something that would be great for them to know as they prepare for their kiddos to enroll in a Montessori school?
So one of the videos we send to our parents, because for a lot of our parents, they can only, well, not only, we have to say, like, this is what traditional education is, and then juxtapose that with this is what Montessori is, because that is their frame, right? So in traditional education, kids sit in desks and the same lesson is given to all children at the same time. In Montessori, right, like this is how it's different. And so we do that. And so, we'll take like traditional stuff, and it's not like a versus, it's like, like just look at this and look at that. And so our flyers, like we have that to give to them. And we like this guy, Trevor, I'm not remembering his last name. It starts with the E. I'm sure we've gotten him like so many YouTube views, but it's called Montessori Madness. And he has this video on YouTube. So he has a book, which I love. Yes, but he has
where he draws.
Yes. I send it to every parent because they can understand it from like that traditional, like, oh, this was happening in traditional education, and this is what's happening in Montessori. And it like gets me a convert every time I send it to a parent. So like we are really helping him with his YouTube views.
Lots of hits.
Lots of hits.
I would like to recommend a book. First of all, don't tell parents go read The Secret of Childhood. Or no. That's a no. Nobody has to read that. Or E.M. Standing's Maria Montessori. I can remember reading that when I took training, and oh my gosh, it was like a sacred Bible for Montessori. But Paula Lillard, I can't pronounce it, like Preslak, I think is her name. Their whole family, the Lillard family, is very involved in Montessori. Her mother, Paula Polk Lillard, was a Montessori guru is a Montessori guru and has been for a long time. Her sister is the researcher that can give you the research about Montessori. And Paula has a really nice, sensible book. It's called The Montessori Potential. I do not get a cut, but here it is. The Montessori Potential. It's a simple read overview where the chapters are really nice for parents. It talks about what is Montessori. It talks about what the school should look like, what the classroom would look like. So that's one that's not a textbooky kind of thing, but kind of a family-oriented book that I would recommend. And I love those videos. You're right, Sarah. They're great.
So great.
Yeah, great resources. I'm sure that we'll be bumping up the count on YouTube with our parents too. Well, as we wrap up with our last question, you all have shared a lot tonight about what surprised and delighted you on your Montessori journey so far. But I did want to invite each of you, if there's anything else you'd like to share, anything you'd like to reiterate as we finish our conversation this evening.
I'd like to say that I said before futuristic, and having been in Montessori my whole life and for ages, I am still friends with children and families that I taught years ago. And I have seen where they have gone from when they were 3, 4, and 5 to where they are as adults with children of their own, One of the little girls I taught is teaching in my classroom now. She's a Montessori teacher. So it's just that you never know the power of what goes on in a Montessori classroom for the future. And it can be quite powerful because we're not just educating children with academics. We are helping them with an aid, as Montessori called it, an aid to life, to be able to be strong, independent, responsible adults too. So it's a big task that we all take on, and public Montessori in particular is a big task.
It's very, very good, Peggy. Makes sense because you've been doing this forever. So
Forever.
I appreciate those words of wisdom. I think for some of our families, when they hear Montessori, right, it's like, oh, it's not for me. Not because they like have looked at the practice or and been like, no, like here's my analysis of it and it's why it's not for me. They see it as like, this is so elite, right? Like this is not for me, this is not for my people. And so like an offering I have to all families who might have this perspective, it is, right? Like Montessori started in the slums of Italy. Like this is for everyone. It is for you. And like, we invite you to bring yourself, your family, who you are into the Montessori community, because you will be welcomed, you will be loved on, right? Like your children's talents will be cultivated, their lives will be filled with purpose. And it's for you. It's not for like the elites. It's for you. It's for everyone.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sarah. Well, and Peggy, when you were talking about futuristic again, it really made me think that really what we're saying is that the Montessori approach is really timeless, right? It is going to be impactful in a positive way, no matter what the future holds for our kids. So I want to thank you all. We are so grateful for your time tonight. It's been great to connect with you and hear your stories and your just learn from your experience. And just know that we at Mountain City Public Montessori admire and respect your commitment and look forward to partnering with you in the future. Thank you all.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Yes, it's been fun.
Thank you.
Thank you.